Okay, we'd like to call to order the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission, April 13th, 2026 meeting. Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Here.
Ms. Strain,
Here.
Mr. Khan,
Here.
Mr. Millspa,
Here.
Ms. Gomes,
Here.
Ms. Gold,
Present.
Mr. Bill and Calhoun,
Here.
Chairman Darpino.
Here. Next up is the approval of the March 23rd, 2026 meeting minutes. These were not ready in time for this meeting, so they will be tabled until the next meeting. Next up, we have public hearings. So first public hearing is 3515 Rosendale Road. This is an application for a plat plan approval of a 2-lot minor subdivision. Project lead is Ms. Gold. Ms. Bergami, could you please read the public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the Code of the Town of Niskayuna, New York, and the applicable provisions of the Town Law of the State of New York, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna in the Town Board Meeting Room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 13th day of April, 2026 at 7 p.m. to consider an application from Assad Mufti, property owner at 3515 Rosendale Road, for approval of plat plan, minor 2-lot subdivision in Town of Niskayuna, tax parcel ID number 62.3-1-23.2. The property is located within the R2 Medium Density Residential Zoning District. A copy of the application will be available for inspection at the Planning Department in the Niskayuna Town Hall and can be viewed at the town website under the Public Hearings tab, and will also be shown electronically during the public hearing. If you wish to express an opinion regarding the public hearing, you may do so at the above-mentioned time and place. If you cannot be present, you may request a virtual login to the meeting by emailing lrobertson@niskayuna.gov or calling 518-386-4531, or you may set forth your opinion in a letter which will be made part of the permanent record. Please note there is a 5-minute time limit for each speaker at the public hearing, and submitted letters will not be read out loud at the public hearing, but such letters will be included in the minutes and added to the record. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna will hear all persons interested during the aforementioned public hearing. By order of the Planning Board of the Town of Niskayuna, New York, David Darpino, Chairman, Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Bergami. Okay, anybody wishing to speak on the public hearing for 3515 Rosendale Road, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. This is solely for 3515 Rosendale Road.
Hi, my husband and I are at 3499 Rosendale Road and 4010 Old River Road. It's a 6-acre parcel directly below this lot in question. So I am interested in seeing what the sewer, it's stated that it was approved already, I believe, but we don't know what that is, or I'd like to see that. Also, I'd like to know, there are large mature trees at the back of the lot, which is at the base of the top of our hill. I didn't know if any of those are going to come down or not. The house at 3515 is an old, beautiful, historic home. I also had a personal relationship with the then elderly couple who lived in it prior. It's lovely to look up at. I would like to know what the structure would be of the house next to it that is, I assume, going to be built if the lot is approved for subdivision. And if it would be looking at all like the historic, beautiful home that is at 3515. And that's mostly my concerns. We want the privacy of, we're in 6 acres for a reason, and we want it to stay that way.
Thank you.
Hi, Samantha Rankin and Lee Charo of 3505 Rosedale Road. These are our lovely neighbors here. So we are the lot behind the subdivided, the little, I don't know if you guys can cursor over that, but behind, yep, that. We're completely landlocked. We don't have a driveway. Not that we would sell, but we don't have the option to sell. So our plan is to buy that subdivided lot there and not build anything on it. We just want more land of our own. We have kind of a family compound up there, but unfortunately our house is, again, like I said, landlocked. So we just want to purchase that land to have land for my kids, and we're not putting anything there. No houses or anything like that. So that's good. Yes. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else present wishing to speak on 3515 Rosendale Road? Okay, Laura, do we have anyone online? Or do we receive any correspondence?
No correspondence. There is, I am assuming that S Blocks is an applicant. Everybody else I recognize.
All right, last call for 3515 Rosendale Road. Okay,
Yes, I am here. S Blocks, that's me. I'm sorry I was muted and I tried to unmute myself, but now I'm good. It seems like. So I am the owner, is Asad Mufti. And do you guys want me to address the concerns that the first person had, or is it what's?
Mr. Mufti, we have you on as a discussion item, also as a thing later in the meeting, so we can address those items on.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, seeing that there's no further comments on 3515 Rosendale Road, we will close that public hearing. Next up under public hearings is 46 Commerce Park. This is an application for a two-lot subdivision for a site plan application requiring a special use permit for a 6,000 square foot building for a childcare center. Ms. Gold is the project lead. Ms. Brigami, could you please read the public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the code of the town of Niskayuna, New York, and the applicable provisions of the town law of the state of New York, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna in the town board meeting room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 13th day of April 2026 at 7 p.m. to consider an application from Chris Brerigan, agent for the property owner of 46 Commerce Park Drive, for construction of a new 6,000 square foot building for the Montessori Child Care Center in the town of Niskayuna. Tax parcel ID number 31.1-73.53. The property is located within the OTLI Office Technology Light Industrial Zoning District. A copy of the application for site plan review will be available for inspection at the Planning Department in the Niskayuna Town Hall and can be viewed at the town website under the Public Hearings tab, and will also be shown electronically during the public hearing. If you wish to express an opinion regarding the public hearing, you may do so at the above-mentioned time and place. If you cannot be present, you may request a virtual login to the meeting by emailing lrobertson@niskayuna.gov or calling 518-386-4531, or you may set forth your opinion in a letter which will be made part of the permanent record. Please note there is a 5-minute time limit for each speaker at the public hearing, and submitted letters will not be read out loud at the public hearing, but such letters will be included in the minutes and added to the record. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna will hear all persons interested during the aforementioned public hearing. By order of the Planning Board of the town of Niskayuna, New York, David Dorpino, Chairman, Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Brigami. Anyone wishing to speak at the public hearing for 46 Commerce Park, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anyone here present for the public hearing. Laura, do we have anyone online?
Just the applicants online and no official
No correspondence?
correspondence. Yep.
Okay, so last call for public hearing for 46 Commerce Park. Okay, seeing as there's none, we'll close the public hearings. Moving on through the agenda, next up is privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is open to any resident of Niskayuna wishing to speak about any planning or zoning matter. Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Doug McFadden. I'm at 1388 Row Road. I had one question regarding this full SWIP this is for 6 St. Gerard. I guess what I would like to know, who has the final responsibility for this? That it works? That whatever we're going to do here to mitigate stormwater removal, is it the town? Or is it the town supervisor? I'd like to know that. We've had some discussions about it, but I'd like an answer either from the planning board, or if it's not the planning board, whoever else in the town is responsible. That's my question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak at privilege of the floor? Okay, Laura, do we have anyone online?
Nope, they're all applicants.
Okay, and any correspondence?
Not for privilege floor. Nope.
Okay, great. Okay, last call for privilege of the floor. Seeing as there's none, we'll close privilege of the floor. There is no unfinished business, so we will move on to new business. First up is Resolution 2026-23. This is a resolution for a two-lot subdivision for a site plan application requiring a special use permit for a 6,000 square foot building for a child care center at 46 Commerce Park. Project lead is Ms. Gold. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that this Planning Board and Zoning Commission hereby grants site plan approval in conjunction with the Town Board special use permit to subdivide 46 Commerce Park Drive into two lots and construct approximately 6,000 square foot building for a child care center, as shown in the aforementioned drawings, subject to the conditions below. 1, the applicant will work with the tree council to identify adjacent areas where additional trees can be planted to adequately screen and property from the adjacent uses. 2, the applicant will work with the Conservation Advisory Council to try and incorporate sustainability elements into the property and design of the new building. 3, lighting shall be minimal and directed away from the residential properties and open sky. 4, adjacent stormwater management pond must be rehabilitated to meet the stormwater requirements for the previously approved Hillside Commerce Park prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued to the new building or on-site stormwater system shall be provided. 5, the subdivision map setting the boundaries for 46 Commerce Park Drive and the newly created lot must be completed and recorded prior to the issuance of any building permits. 6, the applicant will work with Complete Streets Committee on a public access easement to Iroquois Village Apartment and future pathway and explore the construction of a sidewalk along Commerce Park Drive. 7, prior to the disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskayuna and shall address any concern raised by the town. 8, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent of water and sewer and engineering. 9, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any questions or concerns raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter. 10, prior to the site disturbance, the site plan maps shall be modified to reflect agreed upon decisions of the pre-construction meeting, if any, and distributed as required to the town to all involved contractors. Final site plans shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. 11, in accordance with Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the town of Niskayuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and shall remain in place until such a time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. And 12, should the first floor elevation for the buildings or additions deviate by more than 6 inches from the elevations approved for construction by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission or the Building Department, then revised grading plans shall be submitted immediately to the town's engineering office for review and approval. May I get a motion?
I so move.
Right, moved by Ms. Gold,
Second.
a second by Mr. Khan. Okay. Representative from the applicant here?
Good evening, Luigi Palesci with ABD Engineers and Surveyors.
Good evening,
Luigi Palesci with ABD. Got an echo.
All set? Okay. Okay, great. You had a chance to listen to that. So just as a clarification, the packet that we had, the numbering started on number 5. So I just fixed those to put them numerically in order.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
little confusing from the one
that's
that I
okay.
had. We're good with all the conditions. The only one, and I lost track of which number, but in regards to subdivision map setting boundaries for 46 Commerce Park Drive and the
Mhm.
newly created lot must be completed and recorded prior to issuance of any building permits. We were hoping that if we could change that instead of prior to issuance of building permit, prior to CO. A lot of times when we're ready to submit the 2-lot subdivision, it can take some time for the county clerk to go through the tax searches and the filing process. I know these guys are looking to start construction and get a building permit sooner than later. So if we can save some time there, we're obviously working on this 2-lot subdivision to complete. And, we'll get it to Laura, in the next week or so and button up so that we can get signatures on the Mylar and paper in order to start the filing process. But sometimes we found that takes 2 to 3 weeks in the county clerk's office. So if that's something this board can consider, that would be the only change on the conditions.
Okay, no
Yeah.
objection.
Yeah, I don't have an objection to that. A lot of times that's in there because it has to be, but this is actually a vacant lot. So we could issue a building permit for it as a whole lot, as long as the subdivision. Or did you have opinion on that
No,
one?
I don't object either. The applicant needs to understand that they're essentially going forward on their own risk, that they can't get over the finish line without completing that, which is to us very important to the process. So as long as you understand that risk and take on that responsibility, then I don't have a problem with the amendment of the resolution.
Okay, in that case, I don't have a problem with it either.
Okay.
So how should we word that?
So I guess in the last part, it says prior, so it's labeled 9 in your packets.
Mhm.
Recorded prior to the issuance of any building permits would be recorded prior to the issuance of final CO. Usually that's the other one that
Yeah.
we used to hang big conditions on.
So I'll move that as an amendment.
Correct. Okay, so, so Ms. Gold is moving for amendment number 1 to be item 9, which is going to be relabeled item 5, to read the subdivision map setting the boundaries for 46 Commerce Park Drive, and the newly created lot must be completed and recorded prior to the issuance of final certificate of occupancy. Okay. I will second that. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. We do have one housekeeping thing that was in the summary of the whereases. There were a couple dates that were not consistent with the application that we had. So just as a clarification, anywheres where it mentions town board April 30th for the special use permit should be town board March 26th. That's a
Yep.
correction clarification that we wanted to do. And in the 2 whereas clauses, the 5th for seeker and the 8th for the SUP. Just 2 items you wanted to update there. Keep that for the record. So I'll propose that would be amendment number 2.
I'll second it.
A second by Ms. Gold. Okay. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we also had one other thing.
Well, I have a suggestion for one other amendment. The revised plan now has a bioretention facility on the parcel, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I would just propose I guess whatever the number would be now, a condition 13
Mhm.
to have the standard maintenance agreement and access easement for stormwater management facilities.
So I have some language that we would propose to add here. So condition number 13 would read as follows. Prior to final certificate of occupancy, the owner of the adjacent stormwater management pond shall sign a stormwater control facility maintenance agreement and access easement in order to ensure the proposed stormwater facilities are installed and maintained per plans.
I guess I was referring to the bioretention that's actually on the parcel.
Yeah, so this parcel in itself will have its own standalone bioretention
Okay.
And then you have the existing stormwater basin as well.
Right, the area right there at the,
Yeah,
Mhm.
to the west, yep.
okay.
Right, because we already had the condition in there about restoring the adjacent pond, so I was just,
Okay.
we have the standard note that's on some other resolutions for when the parcels have their own stormwater management features.
Mhm.
So now that this one has its own bioretention basin on it, I was just recommending that that condition be added. So it shouldn't refer to the adjacent pond.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand that. Although actually, I think the adjacent pond should have one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we would change that then from the owner of the adjacent property to the developer, because that's actually the note that I put in the email back.
So we've got two things though, right? So you're gonna have an owner of this parcel that has the bioretention. And the owner of that parcel, yes, I agree, that's been town standard practice to have a maintenance agreement for just that parcel and that practice.
Yeah.
But then somebody else, I think, is gonna own that existing stormwater pond. So it shouldn't fall back on like the Sparagon Partners,
Right.
correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll have to work on the end future of that pond, like because that pond was built a long time ago. It was probably built with the intention that the industrial complex would get built out fairly quickly and then be deeded to the town, but that didn't happen. And now it's actually not going to be used, I think, for the remainder of the subdivision, because what you guys are talking about is after this, there would be individual stormwater management practices on each of the lots.
It's possible. The reason why we had to add the bioretention is to meet today's green infrastructure requirements.
Yeah.
Back when they had their own SWIP in place, their continued coverage expired. So we have to submit a new notice of intent. And by doing that, we needed to come up with our own green infrastructure practice. But the overflows will still go to the existing pond as originally designed back in 2003.
Yeah. And so my guess would be that probably the town wouldn't take this pond over. So at some point, we probably would need to do an easement or some way of making sure that that pond was maintained in the future. But yeah, I agree with what Andrew said, that, and you, it's a more standard condition to say the owner is going to maintain their own stormwater pond and we have the easement to go in there if we have to. So I think all we have to do with that language you proposed is change the owner of the adjacent property to the developer.
So condition 13 would read, prior to final certificate of occupancy, the owner of the property stormwater management pond shall sign a stormwater control facility maintenance agreement and access easement in order to ensure the proposed stormwater facilities are installed and maintained per plans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll get a motion to add condition number 13.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think that covered some open items on our end.
Okay.
Chairman Darpino,
Yes.
could you read condition number 4 again?
Well, that's actually directly out of the town board special use permit.
So number 4 is labeled 8 in the package. The adjacent stormwater management pond must be rehabilitated to meet the stormwater requirements for the previously approved Hillside Commerce Park prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued to the new building or on-site stormwater system shall be provided. Are we,
We can't change that. That came directly from the town board special use permit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know, and I know that's a little complicated because when the town board granted the special use permit, the pond was, my understanding, was going to be rehabilitated to meet the requirements for the previously approved Hillside Commerce Park. But now we're saying that it's just going to be taking the stormwater from 46 Commerce Park Drive, right?
Well, we're proving that the existing pond as it sits today will meet the 2003 design standards plus whatever's overflowing from this particular new building and parking lot.
And I know that we still have some outstanding data on that is needed, a volume calculation, I think.
Yeah, so we're working on the as-built, well aware of that. And, we'll certainly finish that up, get it over to your TDE. But, we're hoping that, the subdivision and the site plan approval would be conditioned upon all of that.
So you're comfortable that that will apply? Because that's what came from the town board.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And whatever modifications would be needed, I know we've talked about the outlet control structure needs some modifications because, one of the weirs had maybe fallen over. I've done my inspection and we've got to reinstall that. That's one of the, rehabilitation measures that need to be done in order to comply with what we're looking at today, including the daycare. So all of those things will be put, in a document forwarded to the town and the town designated engineer and signed off on prior to CO. So all of that can be in the works if this board's okay with it, and looking for that conditional approval tonight for both. Yeah, we received the TDE comment or email, So, we've got no objection to addressing that. We're already on it. So we can address it.
All right. Any further discussion on the conditions for the resolution in 46 Commerce Park? Okay. Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Millspaw?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Chairman Dorpino?
Aye, resolution passes.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you. And just to be clear, that's for both subdivision and site plan approval, correct?
And, well, yeah, and
Mhm.
the special use permit's
And
already
special-
there, right? Mhm.
Excellent. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up under new business is Resolution 2026-24. This is a resolution for preliminary plat plan approval of a major subdivision at 6 St. Gerard Drive. Project lead is Ms. Gold. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that this planning board does grant preliminary subdivision approval to the 5th lot major subdivision at 6 St. Gerard Drive with the following conditions. 1, the conditions and intent of the planning board resolution 2025-15 dated June 22nd, 2020, a 4-lot subdivision of these lands, and 2023-16 dated June 12th, 2023, a 2-lot subdivision and lot line adjustment that added additional property to these lands remains in effect on the major subdivision. 2, wetlands shall be recorded in the deeds and plot plans for each building lot. A note shall be added to each plot plan to state the wetlands may not be drained or physically altered without appropriate permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. 3, the town of Niskayuna requires that no land can be disturbed within a 25-foot buffer from the boundary of the wetland. Unless prior written approvals are granted by the town planning department, a split rail fence must be installed at said 25-foot buffer for each affected lot prior issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. Number 4, should the garage floor elevation for the new lot deviate by more than 6 inches from the elevation approved for construction by the planning board and zoning commission or the building department, then revised grading plans shall be submitted immediately to the town's engineering office for the review and approval. Number 5, the applicant will submit to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation a notice of intent for stormwater discharges associated with construction activity under the State Pollution Discharge Elimination Systems General Permit Number GP 0201. The applicant will provide a copy of the permit to the town prior to final subdivision approval. 6, prior to final certificate of occupancy for the new home, the applicant shall sign a stormwater control facility maintenance agreement and access agreement easement in order to ensure the proposed stormwater facilities are installed and maintained per plans. Number 7, prior to final subdivision approval and the applicant will submit a tree planting plan as required by Section 189-24, subsect 16 of the Town of Niskiuna subdivision regulations. The applicant will work with the tree council on the appropriate number of types of trees to be planted. Number 8, prior to final subdivision approval, the applicant shall submit easements for the use of the small paper street between the new lot and Angelina Drive. The applicant shall provide all deeds and easements to the town attorney for their review and approval. All conveyances shall be approved by the town attorney and filed in the Schenectady County Recorder's Office at the applicant's expense. Number 9, to the greatest extent practicable, the developer shall retain mature growth trees on the site, including undergrowth trees. 10, prior to site disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskiuna and TDE and shall address any concerns raised by the town. 11, prior to site disturbance, the division map shall be modified to reflect agreed upon decisions of the pre-construction meeting, if any, and distributed as required to the town to all involved contractors. Final site plan shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. 12, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering. 13, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any questions or concern raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter to the town. 14, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any minor textual changes to the subdivision plans will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planning department. 15, I'm going to make it through this. The applicant will secure all necessary right-of-way permits for the Niskiuna Highway Department as applicable to the project. Number 16, prior to the pre-construction meeting, the applicant shall pay a parkland fee to the town of $15,000, which is 5 units times $3,000 each unit. And 17, in accordance with Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the town of Niskiuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. Okay. Make it a motion.
I so move.
Moved by Ms. Gold and
Second?
a second by Ms. Strang. Okay, do we have a representative from the applicant here?
Good evening, Luigi Palesci with ABD Engineers and Surveyors,
Okay,
here representing the applicant.
all right, thank you. You had a chance to hear the conditions on here. Are there any concerns with any of them?
No concerns.
We'll open this up to discussion. We had a couple items that we wanted to go through. So on condition number 3, we have in there that there was a proposed condition. The map that you have has a 100-foot buffer on it, and the town, that it's a conflict. The town has a 25-foot buffer that's in there.
Yeah, we can revise that.
Okay. So Laura, would that be captured in just an updated final set?
Well, yeah, because the one that really captured it, I think, is the that any minor textural changes to the subdivision plans will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planning department.
Okay.
'Cause he sent me a preliminary, but it still needs subdivision notes and signature blocks. So I can make sure that that buffer gets reduced to 25 feet.
Okay. All right. And
I guess, Laura, was that map that was just up there the
Yeah,
final
I
one?
did. I
'Cause
brought that for you.
the
Well,
question I
no,
had
this
was-
is not the one that's going to get recorded, but this
But
one
it has the bioretention
shows the
on it now?
bioretention pond. And Clark also has a couple slides just to go through just the stormwater that we worked on between this meeting and last meeting, if you guys would like them. They're quick.
yes, that would be helpful.
You want to go through them quick, Clark?
Sure.
I think I can do this whole screen. Let's see.
So this just addresses some of the points that came up during the public hearing. This parcel of land is in an area where it's upland of one of the kind of drainage hotspots that we have in town. along Rao Road. So if using people in the room can see the red pointer. This is the original lot, this outline containing all of these 5 ellipses. So that was the original lot. A 4-lot subdivision was done a couple of years ago, creating lots number 1, 2, 3, and then 4, which included the blue area plus this yellow area. And during that time, stormwater was looked at. Because it was less than 5 acres of disturbance, per the DEC process, they looked at stormwater quantity, not necessarily as much as quality, which comes in later, which you'll hear in a minute. So they looked at stormwater design very carefully. These 2 lots have some stormwater retention features, basins on them to control any runoff of water going towards the right of the page. Rao Road is off down to the right here, and that's an area where a lot of stormwater can collect in town. And there's one particular stormwater grate that needs to be kept clean. So it's a bit of a stormwater hotspot. That's why everyone's very carefully reviewing this property. Within the last couple of years, there's a lot here called Polsinelli Drive. This was subdivided into 2 lots. Those were also looked at very carefully relative to stormwater because, again, they're upland of Rao Road, which is down here. So this action that we're here doing now is creating a 2-lot subdivision of what was Lot 4. So Lot 4 is being divided into Lot 4 and Lot 5. That created more than 5 acres of disturbance, and therefore, per the DEC regulations, that had to have a full SWIP prepared, and they had to look at not only stormwater quantity, but also quality. So they couldn't discharge more stormwater post-development than pre-development. So if you could go to the next slide, Laura. So what the applicant and Luigi did a stormwater analysis, and this has been reviewed by a TDE, and this is one of a summary of some of their work. So this is pre-development. So on the right, you can see that's the general parcel in question. And Laura, if you scroll over just a little bit more, you can see that generally this portion of the land kind of drains to the upper left. The lower right portion drains down to the right. That's generally where those first 2 lots were that have their own stormwater retention features included in them. So if you could scroll back left a little bit, Laura. I know there's a lot of numbers here, but so this is pre-development. And what the process does is they looked at stormwater going towards Angelina and summarized that. Then they looked at stormwater going towards Rao Road. And the numbers that you come up with at the bottom here are the important numbers. For the 1-year storm, you have 6.2 cubic feet per second. And you can see the numbers for the 10-year storm and the 100-year storm. So those are important because those are pre-development. So now, as was already discussed, this is a image of the proposed subdivided lot. You can see Lot 4 is down here at the bottom. The new Lot 5 is up at the top with the new bioretention basin here. So if you go to the next slide, this is now showing in the numbers in green are the stormwater runoff values post-development. And the requirement here from the DEC manual is that these don't exceed the pre-development numbers. So here are the pre-development numbers that we just went over, and these are the post-development numbers. And you can see that they're discharging slightly less in the 10-year storm, and in the 100-year storm. So all three of them are less than the pre-development. So that's where they're complying to that requirement. You can see the general direction is basically the same. The red area is showing up to the upper left, and the blue is to the lower right. So this slide is a little bit confusing, but if you remember what Mr. Lisi explained when during one meeting, when the infrastructure in the ground, the stormwater piping was originally installed, it was sized to accommodate this type of a development of the land. And this is all documented in the stormwater review that was done and reviewed by the town designated engineer. So the town at that time made them install stormwater piping that would handle the runoff of all of these homes. There's upward of 70 to 80 homes in this development. So, and these numbers on the left, we won't go through all of those, but what this really shows, and we can post this on the packet if anyone wants to look at it, is that these numbers on the top are what was approved with this layout and what the stormwater piping was constructed to. And then the green numbers are showing the flows going to Angelina, which is up at the top, and Rao Road, which is to the right. And they're just showing that the stormwater numbers are well below what the piping was constructed to. So there's plenty of capacity in that piping to handle the stormwater from this development. But if you remember from the previous slide, there's a newer requirement that they can't discharge more stormwater from the post-development site than the pre-development site. So that extra capacity in the piping just kind of becomes an extra buffer beyond what's already been done. So now, if you go to the last slide, this is the question that came up during the public hearing. What does the process kind of look like now that if this gets approved going forward? This just lays out the step that the developer will be doing with the town and the DEC. And these documents that were included in the conditions of the resolution, specifically step 3 here, that's where information gets filed with the DEC, and they ultimately do look at that and respond back to the town. So again, these are steps that are all laid out here of who's doing what, and we can post this with the minutes of this meeting, and I'd be happy to send them to anybody who has any questions. So, but there is a process outlined in the DEC manual, and we'll be stepping through this, with our TDE, and that includes inspections as things go forward, and a notice of intent form, and then ultimately a notice of termination form when the process is all done. So to Laura, you had mentioned that our stormwater management person within the town is the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering. So within the town, that's the person who has ultimate sign off from a town standpoint. But then these also do go to the DEC. So they do look at those. When that notice of intent goes to the DEC, that they review that and they respond back. So again, we can answer those in more detail if we'd like. So.
All right.
And I think it helped me to see those numbers. It's a long SWIP report, but when you put it in like 3 slides, it
Clark,
makes a lot
thanks
more
for doing that.
sense.
Yeah, it is a lot. We know it's a lot, but again, this is kind of above a stormwater challenged area. So we wanted to be very careful. And you heard many people talk early on in the project that they don't want any more stormwater coming in their direction. So, we've made sure that this was looked at carefully, both by Luigi and with the town designated engineer. So we
And
feel
Clark,
very.
just for completeness, on item number 3, right, before that MS is issued, right, the MS4, there is actually going to be measurements, right?
Yeah, yeah, to Doug's question, I mean, the DEC, I'm gonna say this word, promulgates the laws, but we're an MS4, so
Right.
we have an agreement with DEC to enforce them. So ultimately, it's the town that enforces that the stormwater ponds are built correctly and maintained properly. And that's why we take the easements, because in the MS4 notice of termination, the town has to click a box that says that we can monitor and make sure that they're taken care of forever, which is why we started taking the easement, because language is kind of hard if you don't have an easement. So what the town does is says it's the developer's responsibility to maintain these ponds. But if the developer doesn't maintain them, the town has an easement and can go in and do the maintenance and then back charge the developer with the maintenance agreement for what was done. I mean, there'd be a lot of notification, like the town would say, your pond is not doing well, you got to fix it, give them a certain amount of time, days, whatever. But eventually the town could go in there and fix it if needed. That's why.
That presentation was very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Any other further discussion?
Just one proposed amendment for a typographical
Correct.
correction, just on condition number 5, to change general permit number GP-02-01 to GP-0-25-001.
That would be the most concurrent,
Most current permit, right?
current.
The one currently in effect.
Yeah, that is what it's designed under right now. Obviously, as years go on, that number is going to change, but this wouldn't change. It wouldn't follow what the current is. But I think you get my point.
Okay. So Mr. Millsbaugh has a proposed amendment to change the Speedies permit number from GP-02-01 to GP-0-25-001. I will second that. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any other discussion items on this resolution? All right. Seeing that there's nothing further, Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Millsbaugh?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Chairman Darpino?
Aye, resolution passes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. You can get rid of me now.
For now.
For
Are
now.
you sure? For now.
All right, last up under new business is Resolution 2026-25. This is a resolution for site plan approval for signage replacement at 3333 Council Road, Hannaford. There is no project lead. I'm going to read this resolution and then turn it over to Mr. Khan to chair, because I do have to abstain from this one. So now therefore be it hereby resolved, this planning board and zoning commission does hereby classify this application as a type 2 action under seeker regulations, and no further action is required. Resolved and further resolved, the planning board and zoning commission has determined that the proposed sign waivers as described above would have a minimum negative effect on aesthetics and compatibility with the neighborhood character, and be it further resolved that the planning board and zoning commission does hereby grant said waivers to allow for the signage as described above, and be it further resolved that the planning board and zoning commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code, and therefore hereby approves this site plan with the following conditions. 1, landscaping. Prior to completion of the building permit, the health of the existing landscaping shall be reviewed by the tree council and property owner together, and any dead or dying vegetation will be replanted.
All right,
Over to you.
I'm just taking over from Chairman DiArpino. I'd like to move the resolution. Need a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Ms. Strang. Is the applicant online, I think?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. This is Tom with AJ Signs.
All right, the landscaping condition, is that something that you view as, that you'll be able to execute on reasonable?
I'm working for a national company who's working for Hannaford, who doesn't own the plaza, so I'd have to run that up the flagpole.
It's actually a carryover from the last condition, and Hannaford agreed to it already, so it just got carried over from the previous.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure that we have this condition and we're gonna, ensure that, the applicant abides by it. And then for the planning board, and thank you very much, Clark and Laura, for including the table, makes it complete. And we're basically looking at waivers related to the code 50 square foot requirement, which for one of the signs is really no change, and for the other one, it's an additional waiver for about a 6.38 waiver, but built to what's existing is only 1.72. So unless we have any other discussion, any other discussion? All right, suitable for the area, so I think we can call for the vote, Ms. Bergami.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Millspa?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Mr. Millspa?
Aye.
Oh my God. Acting Chair, Mr. Khan?
Aye. Okay, the motion's passed, and I'll turn back to Chairman DiRapino.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
Okay, that wraps up new business, so we'll move on to discussion items. First up is 3515 Rosendale Road. This is an application for a plat plan approval for a two-lot minor subdivision. Project lead is Ms. Gold. Just to recap, we did have the public hearing and received a couple comments from adjacent neighbors and residents in the area.
The applicant was online, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you want to take an opportunity to respond to a couple of the questions that were asked previously?
Yes, so the one question was, one of the neighbors was concerned about the sewerage system. And at this point, I'm not planning to have any sewerage system on this lot. And the plan is to divide and sell that lot to the neighbor who has a landlock. And so that's, and the next thing is, she was concerned about if I'm going to be removing any large trees. So the answer is no, we're not going to be removing any trees. I think these are the two things that she had.
Okay. I really don't see any issue outstanding at this point. We don't like landlocked lots,
Mhm.
so this would solve one problem.
One thing that we would, I guess, probably recommend, but we could think about as a condition, is if this is like really going to be incorporated into the landlocked parcel, which I think would be absolutely great, the lot should actually be joined. And then you're removing the landlocked parcel off of the tax roll. And that, I think, also justifies why this didn't have a big TDE or anything, because we're not expecting a home or any of the utility connections. So if we know that those two lots are going to be joined together, that's kind of a done deal on this. I think it's a real big benefit to the town and a big benefit to the owner of the landlocked parcel to have it be joined.
Yeah, but Laura, there's steps, right? There's,
So joining is actually very easy. What you just have to make sure is that the landlocked parcel and the parcel that's being subdivided are under the same ownership name. And then administratively, you can just come to the town hall and combine the two.
Yeah, I do think that would be important because once it's subdivided, if it doesn't get joined, it could be sold and it's a buildable lot that could be developed.
right, but the key thing is pertaining to the whatever resolution is going to come for this item. That's a recommendation being made to the future owner, potentially not something that's a condition on this resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it has weighed into how kind of, like, we haven't had a TDE or anything because we're not looking at grading, we're not looking at drainage. So, and that was because we understood that it would be, hopefully be joining to the landlocked parcel.
Is there a
So-
written agreement already between the current owner and the people who are buying it? So there's something
no.
that we know on our end?
They're shaking their heads. Yeah, so maybe we couldn't put it as a condition.
Yeah, no, I don't think we can put it as a condition, right?
But I can work with you guys to combine the two parcels together.
Do you mean that, do we have like a sales contract between me and the neighbor? Is that what you guys are asking for?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Okay.
my concern is that the planning board is
Mm-hmm.
providing or offering a different level of review than we sometimes do, because there
Right.
is a benefit to the town of getting rid of a landlocked parcel.
Right.
So we like that part of it, but we
Right.
would be treating this proposal very differently if it was being sold to someone different.
Right. And so for that, what I'm gonna tell you is that my plan is to, once it's divided, I'm gonna put the house up for sale. And, because, both parcel has to be closed at the same time. And that is how the bank is gonna get, their funds, the loan that I have. Because at this point, the bank is not gonna be agreeing to me just selling a piece of land to the neighbor and just keeping the house. So I can have the sales contract with the neighbor, but there's gonna be no date. Once I have the buyer for the house, then I'm gonna schedule both closings at the same time.
Okay, so I need to think through this to make sure that works, but separately,
Right.
we're not saying, like, please don't construe anything that this planning board is saying as
Mhm.
you need to sell to the neighbor. Like, that's not our issue.
Yeah.
But
Right.
if you don't choose to sell to them, we
Mhm.
would prefer to know it now so
Yeah.
that we can safeguard the town by applying what I would say is our normal process for a two-lot subdivision.
So this lot, I'm planning to sell it to the neighbor, just the lot, not the house. Once it's divided, I'm gonna have a house on one lot and I'm gonna have this empty vacant lot. So the plan is to sell this vacant lot to the neighbor and then sell the house to whoever buys it.
Okay, but
And-
I'm confused by the fact that the
Okay,
two
sure.
closings happen to happen simultaneously.
Because what happened is right now I have a loan on the house, right? So the bank owns
Okay,
the
that makes sense
lot
now.
and the loan. Yeah, go ahead.
Will the lot with the house on it appraise
Mhm.
for enough to support your current loan?
Yes.
Okay, so then one option for you is to negotiate with your current lender to
Mhm.
have a partial lot release.
They don't do it. We tried. Been trying for the last 6 months.
Okay. Well, so we'd like to see the proposal. I'll review it, but also, like, I think it continues to be a discussion item until we resolve that part of it.
Yeah, the sales contract with no date could still be useful.
No closing date. Yeah.
I don't really know how that works.
As opposed to maybe a letter of understanding or a
Yeah.
Memorandum
I
of
can,
understanding.
Maybe a
you can do a
workaround.
letter of understanding. That's fine with me.
Timing is an essential element of a contract. So it
Right.
would be difficult to have a contract with no time frame, but there may be a different workaround. So we'll try to work with the
Right.
applicant to see if we can make it work.
Okay.
Okay.
So the letter of understanding should be good enough.
I'm not committing to that yet, but I'll consider it.
Okay. And what would you like to have exactly on the letter of understanding so I know what to write?
We can have
Yeah.
so I think that, the comments that we heard under the public hearing are
Mhm.
that lot is basically going to stay the same. Hopefully we
Right.
can join it to a landlocked parcel, which helps
Mhm.
everyone. It's a win-win.
Mhm.
And that you can work with the planning department and our outside counsel, Attorney Hess, on
Mhm.
a condition that we could add in there that'll help with I would say, like, lower standard of review, because our understanding is that it's going to serve an existing home and not have a new home be built on it,
Correct. That's what the intention and the plan is.
which I think long term you know, that the landlocked parcel could eventually put a real driveway and, you know, really, you know,
Mhm.
have an actual
Right.
connection to their own connection to a road.
Right.
That would improve public safety as
A
well.
lot of things, yeah.
So we agree with the intent.
Mm-hmm.
The question is whether we should hold off on going to resolution on this.
Mhm.
And I'm getting the impression from Mr. Hess that we probably should hold off.
Yeah, I'd like more detail.
So maybe we could just set up a quick meeting next week or the week after and just make sure that we've got the legal language right.
Okay.
And if you want me to
Okay,
attend,
that's-
let me know.
Okay, thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, that is fine with me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like there's a little bit of legwork here to do. So we'll keep this on as a discussion item. Thank you for your patience and your time with us.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So that closes out 3515 Rosendale Road for tonight. Next up on discussion items is 2757 Aqueduct Road, Niskuna Harbor. Sketch plan application for a planned unit development. Project leads are Ms. Strang and Mr. Laflamme. So I'll preface this by saying that tonight we were going to keep the discussion item short to basically the quick update of where the CAC was with the current conversations with them. And the planning department's been eagerly awaiting the check for the town designated engineer, which was apparently turned over tonight.
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. So thank you for doing that. I think at this time, if we could just get a quick recap of where we are with the CAC. I know that there was some information that was provided. That seems to be the next big step for us in this process. So if you wanted to quickly recap that, that's basically what tonight's intent would be.
Sure. A couple weeks ago, we met with a few members of the CAC, a few members of the board. I believe Ms. Strang, you were on, and Mr. Laflamme was at the meeting. And we heard the CAC's comments from a couple of members of the board. We went back and we put together some information that we felt would be beneficial in helping them make their decisions. One of them was to put together a single standalone document called an expanded long form, which basically takes your long form environmental assessment and marries with it all of the environmental studies that you've done that supports your answers within that long form. Included in that were all our wetland studies, our wetland permits, our archaeological, the traffic study. All of that stuff went to them so that they have all of that in hand when they make their decision. We also prepared a response letter summarizing some of the questions that they had regarding stormwater management and how we would, progress with the stormwater management, meeting the phase 2 requirements under New York State DEC, and all of that stuff. They didn't have, we got it to them the day before because there wasn't a lot of time between when we met with them in the meeting. And I did spend a considerable amount of time over the weekend getting this information compiled and back to them. We submitted it to them the day before the CAC meeting. They hadn't had a lot of time, but we also presented this again and engaged in discussion with them at the meeting. One of the things that we prepared was this nicely rendered plan showing the green space, proposed landscaping, benefits for stormwater management that follow the green infrastructure practices with bioretention basins and rain gardens and that type of stuff. Pollinator, seed mixes and trees along the pond, with maybe augmenting some shade trees along the pond banks to keep the water cool. We let them know we're not going anywhere. We're looking to them for things like, we're going to have to put together for the HOA, we're going to have to give them, include a property management schedule in the HOA, and we would, certainly encourage them to give us their insight on how they would like the open space managed, because that does, that's a big chunk of this property is open space, as you're aware. There's a good chunk that's being donated to the town, a little over 12 acres as part of the park out by the river, but there's also still a lot of open space on the site as amenities to the HOA and the residents. We also provided them with our proposed easements, how the easements would be laid out and structured, what easements would be public, what easements would be from the Canal Corp to the town, from the
Parks.
utilities, parks to the town, parks to the town, from the utilities to the developer and that type of stuff, and how we would maintain access. As you can see on this plan, we did adjust that entrance per the recommendations of the town designated engineer, and to get a better grasp of, maybe making it a little more of a sweeping entrance. We did get a letter from from Lansing Engineering, the traffic consultants, reviewing this entrance, reviewing the geometry of this entrance, as well as how they felt it would operate, and they felt it was a good revision to the design and would operate a little bit better overall. We did add the topography, so I don't know, if you look at it, you can see we're dropping down as that road runs parallel. We're dropping down 6, 8, up to 10 feet below the road, below Aqueduct Road, as we enter the site, as we talked about at the last meeting. Chuck, is there anything else you'd like to add with our discussion?
No, and I think those were in full transparency, like the major items where, let's just say the CAC had 10 concerns. We agreed to and answered 9 of them. And Brett's response letter, and we'll go into that in a minute, there was a concern over density. I know we've spoke at length with this board about density. We have a different interpretation of the code under PDD, PUDs. We explained that within Brett's response letter. And also, it has always been our intent to add a diversity in housing stock with a condominium development here. And, we just are at a hard point where we cannot give up any more density with the future construction costs of this development and keeping things relative to the market, right? We initially came in with this development at 209 units. We interpret the code and coupled, in one fashion where, if you look at the PUD next door with Rivers Ledge, we'd be allowed 246 units, I believe,
Yes.
Plus or minus. And even where we're at today, we've made drastic reductions with this board, just with the overall design and flow and the overall aesthetic. So, we tried to meet all the intentions and of the comments from the CAC, and we believe we still have a great project for the community, and looking to continue to work with this board and answer anything else that the CAC may have coming out of comments and the TDE. So.
All right. So, Mr. Point, thanks for making that point clear about the density. And Mr. Flom and I were talking about it on the way in. So I guess the key question I have, being a little bit, prognostic here, what information from the TDE is going to help the CAC come to a resolution on the density question?
Well, I think so if I included all the new information that was given to the CAC in you guys' packet, and it's like a lot of pages.
It's a lot. Not a page. Yeah, it's a lot, but.
So I think part of the what they want the TDE to do is to go through it. And there's a lot of biology reports in there. There's the wetlands. The CAC is really concerned about the wetlands, and there's a lot of, I think, just data in there that's hard to synthesize. So I think they're looking for the TDE to go through that and just say, yep, we agree. Yeah, SHPO's been addressed. I think because DART had a concern that SHPO had said one thing, but not all of the things. So I think it just helps for them to have a TDE go through and look at all those pages and kind of summarize for them. Some of that stuff's very technical.
And we expect the TDE review to be rather simple because, in my opinion, the TDE is reviewing the decisions made by DEC and Army Corps, right? So the biologist reports, what is a TDE going to disagree with New York State DEC or the regulatory agencies that reviewed and approved the reports? So we, more than happy for the TDE to make the review, but These reports have been approved by the jurisdictional authority.
Right, and actually, so that's where I'm coming from. I did look through it. So I'm trying to find the right word. Concern is too strong, worried is too emotional. So it's somewhere in that orbit. I'm not sure if the TDE can come back with something that will answer the density concern
Right, and
that
then
the CSE has.
You may not be on, Clark.
No, it's just very quiet.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the reasons, and I think Chuck and Brett brought it up right in the beginning, there's just a little bit of different interpretations of some of the town's code. So what we're seeking to do in the planning office is make sure that we're accurately interpreting the code, not only for this PUD, but for the next PUD that comes down the road, so that in the planning office, we're interpreting that code properly or the way it was intended. In the review process of the PUD, the planning board and the town board can basically, they have the flexibility to approve whatever they want. If they feel the code is not providing enough density, they can kind of make an approval that allows more density. We just want to make sure that we're interpreting the code properly. So, and as Chuck and Brett mentioned, they looked at it from one perspective. Maybe the planning office is looking at it from a little different perspective. And one of the challenges of some of this, the CAC got a package of probably 300 pages of material that was emailed at 7:25 p.m. the night before the meeting. So that was a tremendous amount of information for them to absorb and respond to. So they looked it over. We had a great meeting, a great discussion, and they just said, hey, we need a little more time to digest this material and make our comments.
Yeah.
So the TDE, what we're asking the TDE to do is look at their interpretation of the code and just provide a broader view of that, I guess.
Yeah, and if I may just add along the lines of the density, I thought it was more straightforward in the code than open to interpretation. I think maybe it's just the way it's presented on the drawing might be a little difficult to comprehend, or I don't know if you could take a minute and just describe it, because I went through and did the density a different way, came up with a similar number. So
Yeah, when we met, there were two different densities we were talking about with the CAC. And what the CAC was looking at was the average density development. Now, the average density development process, which is under supplementary regulations, Article 6 in the code, is very clear on how you determine the density. It is extremely clear, and that's documented on one of the pages. You prepare a sketch plan, you do that sketch plan, you look at it, you subtract out sensitive areas, you subtract out wetlands, you steep slopes, areas of poor soils, sensitive areas, and then you come up with what your average density development. Now you go to Article 7 of the town code, which is the PUD. It doesn't talk anything about a sketch plan. It talks specifically about density. Now, if you go back into definitions in the town code, density is defined in this town as the units per gross acreage of land. So we are applying the unit size, which in this particular case is 15,000 square foot for a single family lot, and dividing that into the gross acreage. Now, I took that one step further and said, you know what? I feel you still need to build roads, so we're going to give you a half a right of way in front of each one of those units. And that's why we ended up with a little bit, larger. I think it's 9,000 square feet. We ended up with 11,000 some odd square feet. So that I wasn't trying to falsify that information or trump up that density in any way. And that's how we came up with our number. We feel very confident. I know I've done PUDs in 2 or 3 other towns in the Capital District, and they all do it the same way. If you go on just a AI search, and I know this because somebody from the CAC brought that up. You go on an AI search and you search, how do you do the density for a planned unit development? And it says you divide your maximum density or your size of your units into the gross acreage. And it said, in some cases, you will take out wetlands. Okay, here's where, again, we diverge a little bit. And nowhere in the town code does it say remove the wetlands. But I did offer that up to him. Even if we remove the wetlands, we're still at 181 units, which exceeds the density that we have here. We feel very confident and comfortable. Now, if we want to talk about precedent, we start looking at precedent, which was brought up several times at that meeting. The only precedent we have for a PUD is next door. And in next door, right or wrong, what they did is they took the R3 density for apartments, which is 10 units per acre, divided it into 26.71 acres, which is the size of the lot, including the 4.5 or 5 acres of wetlands that were on the lot, and came up with 260 units, which is what they were approved to build. If you took that section of the code, that section of the code refers to condominiums as, I believe it's 6 units per acre. We end up with substantially more, 200, and I have it in the letter here, but it's much more than what we're seeking. So we feel confident and comfortable that the density is in compliance with Article 7 of the town code. And there seems to be a divergence in interpretation between us and the Conservation Advisory Council. And I feel that this letter and this response explained it to the best way that we can, but I also standing up here and talking about it and sitting there, well, before I come up here and researching definitions to see how the definitions read out is also beneficial as well.
And I think that, that kind of speaks to kind of the murkiness of this a little bit and why we want to investigate it a little more, because the numbers, the references to Rivers Ledge, that seems to have no connection to the code whatsoever. And it's kind of the example of the flexibility that the boards have in establishing a PUD, because I believe that would have been zoned R2 also. So how apartments came into that, I wasn't here, but I don't understand how they got to that reference as a density reference. All we're trying to do is establish a precedent of how it's coming from. If you look at the PUD code, it refers to the underlying zoning requirements. So I think what the CAC is doing is they're looking at the underlying zoning, which would be R2 zoning. So they're looking at the size of a lot, and a lot would be a buildable lot, not a lot that's entirely wetlands. So that's kind of the way the CAC is interpreting it. And that's why we're just seeking some additional clarity on this. Not because we're trying to limit the number of units. We're just trying to establish a logical path to determining the units. And then the boards have the flexibility to change that number, as they did with Rivers Ledge. This is the second PUD. So before we set a real precedent, we want to have some logic to the format. That's all. It's nothing that can't be altered in the review process.
And I would also add to that, I hope that the TDE sees the review of this in line with how we're interpreting it. I think our interpretation's sound, but, also the code is law in the town. And if it's needed, we're more than happy to do a workshop with the planning board attorney or town attorney and our attorney, just to try to take a review of the code. I believe it's more of a legal item than a technical item, but we're here to work whatever direction this board and the planning department takes.
And again, the one big difference between what the average density development code states and what the PUD states is average density development uses the word sketch. PUD uses the word calculation, and then it goes into density. Now, again, density, when you go to the definition in your town code, specifically states units per gross acreage, which means units, not removing anything, not, hey, can we build on this lot? It's units per gross acreage, which I think is extremely important when you look at that. That's what you have to look at when you start, digging into these codes and you look for the differences and the nuances. And, Mr. Hess, you're the expert on all of that. But that's our interpretation, and that's how, again, this seemed somewhat simple to me when we first started this, because I've done it in other municipalities, and that's exactly how it's been done. Which, not that Niskayuna doesn't stand on its own, but, we do kind of follow, along with that process. I've spoken with several other very prominent engineers in the Capital District as well, to make sure that they haven't run into this, and they're all kind of on the same page with us.
So I'm happy to provide counsel to this board. I'm not ready to do it tonight. What I would say so far is that the least compelling argument that the applicant is making is using Rivers Ledge as a precedent. So Rivers Ledge offered a very specific public benefit at the time. It was a former junkyard that was rehabilitated. We were concerned as a town about environmental issues there. It was an eyesore. They also provided lots of park space. So, and it's the first time we had done it. So I'm not concerned about that as a precedent, but I think Clark raises a good issue, which is that if we've only had one before, once we do this a couple times, then applicants will have a very compelling case to us that we've established a precedent. So I think what the applicant is saying, we need to follow our code. I agree with that. I'm not sure I agree with your interpretation of the code, and I'm not ready to weigh in on that, but I'm happy to work with your attorney on it or the applicant individually. Personally, I just can't do it right away because I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So when I get back, I'm happy to jump in then.
And Brett, you said you did the calculation net acreage too, backing out the wetlands.
Backing out the wetland.
And it was a similar,
It was 181, although I may need to revisit that. I backed out the wetlands, but I didn't back out the other waters of the US, which is going to change it by a few lots, not tremendously, but it's still going to be in excess of what we're proposing.
right. And maybe this is where Mr. Khan was getting at. I agree that it's a calculation. It seems pretty straightforward. It's only 2 sentences in the code, underlying zoning plus 30% additional. You can cut it a couple different ways, but I think you end up around the same unit count. So I guess I don't want to muddy the waters by dragging Rivers Ledge into it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste time or delay, I guess, I guess I don't want to beat it to death.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's not worth beating to death.
I mean, I consciously didn't say Rivers Ledge because a lot of the factor, I was there for that one, right? A lot of factors that Mr. Hess mentioned. I think we need to look at this application in the context of this application. If we have a forethought relative to other PUDs, absolutely. But I think the interpretation needs to close on this one.
Right, and I think it's going down a good path. I mean, one of the things the CAC brings up is, what if the lot was 80% wetlands? So then you take that total land mass, divide it by the number of lots, and you would get a crazy number of lots with 80% of the property being a wetland. So there's just some details they're trying to think through.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we're talking about gross acreage versus acreage minus wetlands,
Correct.
right? Is that what it boils down
That's
to?
what,
Yeah. And the hard thing is just the code doesn't say anything about deducting wetlands, right?
Yeah.
So
And I think that's something that needs to be corrected, frankly. And I will note, this discussion really started with an application prior to Rivers Ledge. Many years ago, there was Wayne Wagner and Napasu with the PUD application for off Balltown Road. And the issue cropped up then because some of the land wasn't usable, and it never seemed right to me that it should be included in the calculation. However, we never changed the code.
I think what Clark said, that it's going down the right path, is true. And I think you said your attorney is Donald Z, right?
yes, Don Z is working on her behalf on some things, and then Michelle
Ah.
Willer
Group.
Group.
Okay, because I mean, I personally think that, Rob has a pretty good relationship with most attorneys. And if they just sit down and look at it together and we could just get the final legal guidance on that, I think that would be a good, helpful
And
thing.
I'm happy to sit down with you when you want to as well. I've been looking at it for a long time.
Yeah, because I know we've gone back and forth, and I really think that the precedent is the one thing. I mean, I might be speaking out of turn. I know the CAC think the numbers are high, but I mean, I think generally we're getting to. I mean, I think the numbers are pretty good, and so we're just making sure that we're doing it right. And like to Clark's point, if we get another one that comes in and that land is just not meant for it, and then they can point back to these two that we didn't do right, then we're really tough. So we just want to make sure that we get it right.
And I think that's kind of two different subjects to me. There's the code and then the numbers,
Yeah.
the code it's just interpreting the code kind of regardless of what the number comes out, just making sure that you're applying it correctly. And the CAC is reading that part where the underlying code, which is an R2 zoning district. So so it's really on interpreting the code. And then there's flexibility in the review process to make the numbers whatever makes the project work or is comfortable to the boards. To me, they're two slightly different things. The CAC is trying to just make sure that the code is being interpreted properly.
Yeah.
I agree. The average density development is a totally different animal because they do require the initial layout. Then the code allows you to reduce the boundaries by 50% to make the lots even smaller. In the PUD code, it just refers to the underlying zoning requirements because PUDs could be in R2 zoning districts. I think they can be in R1 zoning districts. So they kind of just refer to the underlying code of the zoning district, and then they allow a 30% increase on the number of units, where the ADD allows a 50% reduction in the dimensions of the lot. So the ADD is very different in the way it goes about laying those requirements. The PUD is just referencing the underlying zoning district and then giving that 30%.
Yeah, I'm focused on the PUD part of the code.
Yeah.
I can accept that anything with ADD is maybe insightful but not applicable. So Brett, in anything that we have, or Laura, is there a calculation of if it's gross acreage minus wetlands?
I haven't provided that yet. Basically, I can certainly send you that tomorrow. It's literally subtracting out the gross acreage minus the wetlands and then going through those numbers you see in that density calculation at the top and sending that over. I just, it's interesting you ask because I sat there preparing for the CAC meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And I'm like, this question might come up. I had the number in my head and I wrote it down, but I didn't actually send that to the town. I just offered that up as an option that we could provide them with that.
As for the drawing on the page, you're currently at 152 units, right? It's to the left of where we're displaying right now.
Right. We're at 152 units, and based on my calculations, I forget what it was, 200.
213.
213.
Right, that's on the, if you go to the right, so your current calculation based on the buffering for the roadway beyond the 9,000 square foot of the R2 and the frontage, you're coming in at 213, right? So, but all that's based on
including the wetlands.
And
the only thing I have to say about that, and we can exclude out the wetlands, but wetlands can be on building lots. You can have the rear of your building lot have 20% wetlands on it as long as you got a buildable envelope.
Yeah, Brett. I see it as separate things. Let's at least see what the number
and
is, and then the interpretation rule still stands. Right?
Absolutely, and we'll provide that, even though it's not stated in the code, but it seems to be harboring a point. And Leslie, you brought it up as a previous one. We'll certainly provide that. I feel very confident and comfortable that this design is within the intent of the PUD, and the 152 units is less than what you could get with a PUD and the maximum density based upon my interpretation of the code. And I feel like it's a good number to shoot at, and we'll give you that.
Right. Look, at the end of the day, as a planning board member, I'm asking for that number just to basically know what the number is.
Understood.
Clearly, the lawyers, code interpreters, right? I think they're going to be the front line in determining what, what the code conveys interpretation wise, right? But I do see this interpretation as being actually quite tough.
Being quite what?
Being tough.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, tough. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because if the code does say gross acreage, then it's a
We're stuck
deficiency in
with
the
it.
code.
Yeah.
And it's,
And we talked about that. And we're conservative in our interpretation because we're looking forward. The land that we have in Niskuna is difficult to develop. And I think you're going to see the more flexible tools in our code being asked for, such as the PUDs and the ADDs, because the simple subdivisions are kind of over. So if this is something that we're going to see going forward, I think we want to make sure we get it right. And then if we do feel, or the lawyers do say this might be an overreach, then I think at that point we probably want to go back to the code and make sure we've got it right. But like what Clark's saying is we feel that the underlying zoning is what is controlling this, and so that's probably why we need Rob and maybe a couple of the other people to just check it and have the TDE. I think probably the TDE.
Right, but I mean, the underlying, so I'm a little disconnected on that, so let's ask. The underlying zoning controls the lot size fundamentally. It doesn't tell you what to divide by. What's the denominator in the division?
Right. If you listen to DART talk, and jump in here, Clark, if I'm not saying it right, but what DART is essentially saying is that you would start with an R2 subdivision map to really understand how you could get the roads in there, because where the lots would go kind of depends on the land. And so, I mean, right?
the challenge.
I think that's what he's saying, to what Chuck or what Brett brought up. A buildable lot could have a significant amount of wetlands on it. So,
Right, and,
So-
and a common way to do it is you just take that acreage and you take 15% away. You multiply, by 0.85 to account for roads, account for, the uncertainty, to not have to go through and essentially design a project that's not going to be built to justify a density.
Yeah.
right,
And
right.
that was just one of our points. That's why the PUD code specifically says plus a calculation. So it's not like uncommon working with, I'm not an engineer, but I work with engineers all the time on a lot of PUDs, PDDs. Calculations aren't uncommon. And to that point, sometimes you're using those types of multipliers and things to derive your density calculations. And in this case, it specifically says a calculation, and it specifically says of density. And if you look at the definition of density, it's so clearly defined as with gross area.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? It is the underlying, the underlying
Code.
designation, underlying code. Is it going to explain gross area, gross acreage? I don't think it will.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're saying here is give us a little bit more time with the legal
Yep,
department.
no, agreed.
decide
I'm
on
just,
that.
Well, I think we could also start looking at, if we don't like the way it's working, maybe we need to look at rewriting it. And maybe we do want to say, take out some percentage of the wetlands. And there's other topo factors that we should consider too. As Laura mentioned, most of the land we have left to develop isn't primarily for development. We've used most of that.
Yep.
And
It's problematic, and what's reasonable? We
And it-
need some room to develop.
And then, outside of the precedence argument, I think the CAC just looks at a couple of these buildings and they're really tight. And there's not a full grading plan because we haven't done the whole engineering. So I think, when you're looking at where you put the split rail fence in some of these places, it's really tight. And there's a concern that not all these units could be built, but that's kind of a separate concern from the density calculation.
Yeah.
But I think it might even be, they're still worried about the tightness, and, a couple of these buildings that are right on the edge, they don't look like they're completely buildable. Which I know we've talked about. When you do your grading plan, you may still lose a couple units.
We will, yeah. And I think the CAC, from what I've understood talking to them, is they think they're losing their opportunity to work
Yes.
with us on that. But I think they made their comments clear, and I've worked with this board, or many of you on this board, for the last 5 years. You're going to take that CAC comment, you're going to carry it forward in the review of the preliminary design. So, I feel like we're in this struggle of, we're going for tentative zoning approval. Tentative zoning approval requires a sketch per the code. There's preliminary design that actions later, once the town board votes. And working with you folks over the years, if the CAC has a concern, it's going to be brought forward when we have that. May not be by them, but it's going to be by this board, right? We're not going anywhere. The preliminary design still has more bites at the apple for this board and everybody in the town to comment on. So.
And what looks tight to some of us may not look tight to future occupants.
Some of these
people-
buildings are tight.
I know they are, but some people don't mind that.
Some people don't mind that.
Some of us would be screaming.
And I would reference everybody back. Brett did a very good job, and I think it was Clark who had asked for an overview of other condominium developments. And this is, we were less, or we were more spaced out than I think almost every single one of those developments. So, it's a product type. It comes back to the comp plan on the diversity of housing type. They look tight, but it's very common to condominium development. It's what people buy, and and it's also what drives the price, right? Infrastructure shrinking allows unit price to go down, and it's what makes these marketable and competitive to other towns.
My introduction to complexes like this came in Florida when I was visiting family.
Mhm.
And yeah, a lot of them are very tight.
Yeah.
And people seem to be fine with it. My sister lived in a gated community that was single family homes, and it was tight.
It offers a diversity in housing stock in this town, and we do not have that. We have the single family homes, we, right or wrong, we have a lot of that, and that's what we pride ourselves on in this unit, is having that, single family. But we need to be able to bring in young professionals and have places where, snowbirds can have a home in the 6 months they're here out of the summer, where they're not freezing to death. And to do that on, 15,000 acre lots where they have maintenance and upkeep may not be feasible. And I will tell you that in all of the developments, and I've done probably over 300 of these style condos over the Capital District, in every single one of them, the young professional is a huge sales market. They have very few children there. It's a lot of young professionals that want a home to themselves, that want to invest in something so they're not paying rent every month that just goes down the drain. But don't have any upkeep, don't have the maintenance. They're not out in their yard barbecuing. They're coming home with takeout and having dinner until they get to that point where they're going to have a family. Then they've got a home to sell, and then upgrade to one of the more expensive homes within the town. And I think we've kind of belabored this throughout the process. I think it's a great opportunity for the town of Niskayuna to start to get some of those young professionals within the town.
I just want to comment that we've learned in the process that the complications associated with the town, the code, the fact we don't have a lot of examples of condos, that we are needing that diversity, as you pointed out, in housing stock. This is going to take a lot of expertise, awareness, knowledge, interpretation, double checking with professionals what's what. And this applicant has brought some incredibly good detail to provide the board with the information to ask more of the right questions, and that's why I think they're being asked. And the CAC is in a place where they have to make their recommendation on a draft of what we are going to eventually, hopefully, have the opportunity to dig into and figure out whether or not it will meet this board's overall approval or rejection. So I'm just saying that the process of learning through the experts involved in this process is a benefit to this board, and that the information that you guys have both provided throughout the process has been helpful. And Clark's review of understanding, just making sure that everyone is looking at all the data is a huge value, to this process as well, because we don't have a lot of PUDs. So I just, there's a lot of knowledge transfer and deep dive in this project because of where it is, because of the density. We don't have this type of product in this type of location. My perspective is that's the challenge. It has to be a little bit dense, not beyond our acceptable calculations dense, but it has to be a little bit dense in order for this to meet the goal. And having worked in real estate, in recent years, it is a constant chase of failure for someone who wants to stay a snowbird or someone wants to move in and goes to the first, opportunity to buy something that's listed, and a day or two later, it's $100,000 than our neighboring towns. That's hard, to provide opportunity within the town for those who need that type of environment. So it's not a slam dunk. There's a lot of challenges along the way, but I do think the effort is to get the real information exposed.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, as another comment, just I have to say I learned a great deal and deep diving into this project. But I just want to, I know we're not there yet, but I just wanted to thank you folks for really stepping up and answering our questions. And I know it hasn't always been easy, maybe a little frustrating for all of us, but I just wanted to thank you for your efforts. It was appreciated.
Appreciate that.
Oh, and I think one thing, I know it's getting a little muddy that we keep bringing up, but I think would really help is a site walk. I think you always, I think, just get a better idea of everything that's happening, which sadly I won't be able to go on, but I think you guys really,
I
thought we were organized.
Yeah, well,
we
tried to
organize
one, but
then I think only one person could go.
Okay.
And it was just one person from the CAC, right? Yeah.
Right, but we can take another shot at
Yeah, I
that
think we
because
should
I
take
know a lot of people were interested. to
Yeah.
see
We're,
this.
we're happy to guide anybody around, whenever we can get together.
We should-
Wear your long pants and hiking boots.
And a lot of tech spread.
Yeah, I was gonna, because I think the
Yeah,
CAC did a walk on a different place and picked up a lot of ticks. So
The ticks.
Yeah,
are
they just came out.
unbelievable. They
Yeah.
pulled 20 off. the
yeah,
top
like
last
3. He had 3 from just like a 20-minute walk or something.
I pulled 3 off my back.
Yeah.
Putting in my mailbox.
All right. So we're gonna get
We-
the town. We're gonna get
So
the
we're
town.
gonna do
We're gonna
this?
get. We're gonna get the town drone,
Get ready for your sidewalk.
and we will.
Maybe a virtual site walk.
We will get the town
Well,
drone.
we,
and,
we were going to do a tour of the reference projects too, because though that, like they mentioned, that is a really nice listing that Chuck and Brett put together. And we did some just Google Maps captures of that. So if you haven't flipped through those slides, that gives you a really good feel for similar projects. And
yeah, I think honestly the reference projects might be a little bit more meaningful.
The
I'm not
reference-
saying that because of the ticks. I'm actually saying that because you can see something built.
They're not that far away.
It gives you a really good sense of the level of density on projects like this. And again, that's for me, it's interpretation of the code and then the density. This density is not out of line with what you see from those other projects. We have to think beyond just this project into the next project and the next project and how we're interpreting our code. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, or decide if we want to amend it.
If it's not right.
Yeah, and in those other projects too, on the reference sheet, you'll see they don't have the vast green space, open space like this property provides, with the parklands and everything else. I do think that's kind of unique. This project's unique to those, with the walking paths and things like that. I also think it's going to be desirable for folks moving to Niskayuna.
Well,
So to summarize, basically what we'll do is when Mr. Hess gets back, we'll get some additional information, get some clarifications. There'll be the ongoing conversations with the CACs, possibly site walk or some additional information. We do have another meeting on the 27th of April. However, because of the timeline of everything, this may just be moved to reports as opposed to a discussion item. So if that's the case, the planning department will reach out to you. I know the conversations we have are pretty beneficial, but there may just be, instead of rehashing some things, let the next step kind of work its way through.
Okay.
We've
Thank
got,
you.
we've got the TD all teed up and ready to go, so we'll get them going first thing tomorrow.
I have a related question, not for the applicants though. I had asked for an accident report for the roundabout.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should also include one for Aqueduct Road. I don't think Aqueduct's been much of a problem like it used to be. But I think the roundabout's still very much a problem, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, they can pull, I mean, there has to be a time frame for them. They could pull them like within the last year or something like that.
Well, with the roundabout, it'd be really helpful if we could have a comparison over the last few years and see if we're trending up or down or staying about the same.
The reason for that would be, though, that we think that this application might need to mitigate something that's happening at the traffic circle.
I just think we need to be aware if there's a developing problem there. I know you say it works very well. My experiences haven't agreed with that.
Well, I mean, I live right off of it. It's an interesting traffic circle, but I think we'd have to make sure that that data was tied to something specific on the project. And I believe the traffic engineer was here when you guys
Yeah.
were talking, right?
Right.
And so the question is it adding enough cars to actually impact what's happening at the traffic circle? Because if we do pull those reports, I mean, who's analyzing them? How are we going to use them? That's just my question.
I believe she commented on that, but I can't remember what her answer was specifically.
I think she said it was below the threshold
Yeah.
of 100, so.
Yeah, could you maybe
But-
just, I mean, is there something in the traffic report that extends all the way to the Rexford traffic circle?
No, I think Clark is right. What Alana had said at our last meeting is why was the roundabout not studied?
Right.
And the threshold for the roundabout to be studied is if we were adding, it was like 80 to 100 extra cars.
Correct.
So we were under the threshold. And not a traffic engineer. I don't remember what that code reference was or what document she follows,
I
but
think that's the DOT standard.
yeah,
Yeah.
or federal
Right.
highway. I'm not sure. One of them.
They're probably the same. Yeah.
But I kind of understand what Ms. Gold is saying. She's kind of saying if there was already a abnormally high number of accidents at the traffic circle, I think she's saying then would adding 80 trips or whatever have more weight because you've already got a high accident area.
I know my perception. I know not everybody has the same perception, but I know other people who have my perception that's become very dangerous. That it was at the outside, it calmed down a little, and now it's back up there. You know, when people were mostly staying home, things got better.
But I'm just wondering, because changing a New York State built traffic circle, any kind of modification to that is probably a pretty substantially costly project. I mean, it certainly can pull the numbers, then, and see, and then, I mean, I guess we could give the numbers to your traffic engineer and she could say, but I mean, I guess the end result is that we would need some kind of a traffic engineer to analyze that and decide if these additional cars would negatively impact that number. And if that's true, then what would the applicant do to mitigate it? Right? Because this is a development.
Or
That's
what
why
would we
we're
ask
using
the
them.
state to do? Yeah.
Just a mundane question. The TD knows the key topic at hand that we're trying to get resolved?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had a couple good meetings with them, and they do have that one letter that is in the packet.
And they're looking at all of our definitions in the code for both density and area.
I think the TDE is gonna defer to our legal attorney probably on that. If the TDE were to do a legal interpretation of that, they would actually have to bring in their outside attorney, their engineering firm.
Mhm.
They could sub to an attorney, but it's probably in the end cheaper for our attorney to look at that than for the TDE to sub that question out to a separate attorney, but it's something that we can look at with them and Rob.
Okay.
And Elena. And Jess. We have
Cool.
3 now.
All right.
Yeah, and just the only other thing, I've brought this up numerous times, is just the road cut coming off Aqueduct Road. I know that those townhomes, the way you have them spaced, you got the updated, we'll call it curvature added to the road. There's going to be a lot of fill there in order to make those things. You got some side loaded garage there. Internally, you may want to take a look at that sooner than later. I think that that's going to be a component that's going to have to get heavily vetted internally for you to see how you're going to make that transition.
Actually, those units will be walkout basements.
No, I know, but there's, a series of retaining walls and things like that, I think,
Yeah,
that are going to
probably
show up.
at the side load garage, you probably
Mhm.
have a retaining wall along the rear side of that. But
Yeah.
other than that, I think, I did preliminarily look at the grading through there, and I think we can make that work out pretty well.
Okay.
Does this site have as much bedrock as its neighbor?
We're not 100% certain, but we're anticipating hitting some bedrock like the neighbor. It's not as apparent on site as it was next door. Next door, you actually could see rock outcroppings before the
Yeah,
development.
you could.
This site, you don't. The rock outcroppings aren't prevalent, but we don't anticipate on being able to get real deep without hitting something.
Because they had to use explosives.
Yes, we did.
So,
All right.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and all your candor this evening and comments, and we'll keep hopefully moving forward and we'll get us there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up on discussion items is 3610 State Street. This is a site plan application for a tenant change.
Yes, sir, how are you?
Good. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, my name is Said Abdul Salami. I'm trying to continue at 3610 State Street. I'm trying to put gift shop and whatever he's doing right now, the tobacco shop. And the business is running right now as a tobacco shop. And I was talking with the owner. He did give me a temporary lease, but he said before I do anything, I say I have to stop here to see what's the answer from you.
So currently the operation there is a smoke shop, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is in the plaza with Prima Pizzeria? Is that correct? Okay. And there's another tenant in there too, I think. Is that correct?
It's like four.
Three or four storefronts that
Like
are,
about four.
right. So it's
The
a,
restaurant and the Pesnira and the Nila
Right.
salon.
that's right. And so it's a side facing entrance system that goes in there from the side off of State Street. Okay. So the other update would be that you would have some retail sales in there as well, clothing and a couple accessories, things like that. Okay. Any
Yeah, the-
questions?
The only thing I always remind smoke shops is that we have opted out of cannabis retail, so it can't be a dispensary. And we do have a code that is does have a buffer to schools. So if a school were to go in, like you would never be able to expand anything because once that goes in, you're grandfathered in, but you would never be able to expand.
I guess one of it like a tobacco shop, like tobaccos and cigarette and cigar. That's what I'm trying to do. Like in one side, what I did when you walk to the right, I'm gonna put the whole half the place gift shop. That's what I'm thinking.
So I just want to
And the
make,
business is running right now.
yes, I just want to be clear.
Good.
You're going to be a new tenant.
Yes.
So whoever currently runs that tobacco shop is different from you.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a tenant change.
Right, tenant
Tenant
change.
change.
And the new tenant, you are going to keep tobacco sales and you want to add
Like
sales of other stuff.
Yeah, like gift shop, T-shirts, and like some other project, like T-shirt and gift shop. Like I'm gonna have all the half the shop. One section is gonna be all gift shop. The open area is gonna be open, the back is gonna be T-shirts, and the back side's like tobaccos.
So tobacco
Glass,
sales
glass.
is different from retail, right? Which is what's getting described as the other.
Not
No?
really. It's just for tobacco.
It's like cigarettes, cigars.
Yeah, for tobacco, the THC products that are below that threshold, and then e-cigarettes, our code, one of our former town attorneys did research, and there's scientific evidence that when it is in front of children, there's a higher uptake. So our code requires, I think, a 1,500 foot buffer between selling those products and schools. Right now on State Street, there isn't anything within 1,500.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking so much about the schools because I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
applicable here. The
It's-
issue
it's
is
not.
the issue is the retail definition. Is
Yeah, but
tobacco
yeah, the
considered
one-
retail?
Selling tobacco is considered retail. We just have that special carve out for it because it's known to cause harm to minors and actual adults as well. But
Right.
we
So under face value, this is just retail going to retail.
retail to retail. Yep. Yep. So I recommend a resolution for approval at the next meeting.
Okay. What about signage? Currently, there's a signage on the building, proposed signage of any sort?
No signs, it's still the same. Like the sign?
Mhm.
No, the sign is still gonna be the same.
The business name will stay the same.
No, the same is, I'm gonna change it. It's gonna be like, now it's like what, Road 20
Mhm.
Inc. I'm gonna put it as a LLC. So I'm gonna put, is now it's 20 Road. So I'm gonna change it Road 20. So I can keep the sign the same.
If, I think what we're just saying is that the planning board reviews all signage too. So if you have any changes to the sign, you'll have to submit them to the planning board for review.
The sign on the building.
The sign of the building is say Road 20 Smoke Shop. But
Okay.
when I wanna put Road 20 Smoke Shop and Gift Shop, I wanna add what I'm
Alright.
gonna advertise there.
Yeah, because we look at those things for color and for logo. We've had some
I
that
can
have,
keep the same.
yeah.
It's no big deal, but I just wanna add maybe in the window, gift shop. I'm not gonna put any side outside, any
Yeah.
sign.
I
Like
mean,
in
the
the-
recommendation will be to say what you want to say on it, but it should be compliant with the
Yeah.
code. Right? So,
Yeah, so typically we'd put a resolution that if it's compliant, your new sign can just go through with a building permit, but if it's not, you have to come back to the planning board for your sign.
I mean, the sign is gonna be the same. I mean, I didn't see it. The sign is up there. I just wanna add gift shop into it, but I can put it in a window sticker or anything.
no, I mean, I'd recommend you make the sign what you want it to be,
Yeah.
but just make it compliant with the code. The code
Oh, yeah,
allows you to.
yeah, they have to get their own check, yes.
I just had a question. If, depending on what your clothing is, like what age range you're targeting, is there any regulation about how and tobacco products can be stored? So meaning like if you're going to be having T-shirts and things that youth are going to go in and see, I think you have to have tobacco products stored lower. You can't have them visually above a certain height.
That is not a town code. It's
Mhm.
probably a New York State code would be my guess. Yeah,
No, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like a, yeah.
That's why I opened when you walk to the left, the whole area from the glass all the way to the back is gonna be gift shops. In the back of it, when you walk down to the basement, it's gonna be the whole wall is T-shirt. And I'm
Is it
gonna
like-
put like the glass pipe in the display case, and the tobacco is gonna be in the walls.
And so it would be like apparel, like T-shirts. Or,
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's worth looking into because I think, especially if you're gonna have a glass case, it,
yeah. I mean, is that? Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but we can have them like the building inspectors can see if they can dive into that for building code, or if it's not building code, it might be New York State code somewhere.
So I think if the planning department checks a couple items, we could probably have this on for tentative resolution. It is a tenant change. And the signage can be a separate application if you choose to do that. If
Yeah,
you
no.
have it ready, it's only a few days if you want to change that. But Sounds like what you may want to do is just come back with a separate application for the signage.
No problem. So we start tomorrow and get the application, or what, I have to start tomorrow and fill up the application, or what is that?
For what?
Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
Oh, for the signage, when you have your signage design. So it looks like you have a panel signage, like the panel can come out
No.
and go back in.
No, you have like a carper in the top.
Yeah.
In the top of his not coming out. It's just in the side of the building, in the address.
It's a box that has a panel
Yeah.
in it. The panel can be redone.
Okay.
Yes. So you're going to keep the housing, but the front panel will be a new name
Oh,
with
so I have to get a permit for the sign? You told me? What is it?
an application,
Okay,
correct?
no problem. Okay. What's that?
It looks like there's a lot of room in that sign for you to have
Yeah,
it say
there's a
what it
lot of
wants to
room.
say.
Right.
So you don't get your approval tonight. They call for your approval at the next meeting, which is the 23rd,
27th.
27th.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. The planning department will be in touch with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So that wraps up discussion items, and we'll move on to reports.
The only thing I had is that Albany training. I think Nancy, you're gonna go. Yeah, if I can go, I'll try and go too. It's pretty cool because it's free. So take another look at it if you think you can make it.
Where's that again? Exactly?
Yeah, it's pretty far down in Albany.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's not like
Well-
Wolf Road. I feel like it's much farther down.
Yeah, but it's not down city.
It's not like on
city.
Broadway, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And they said to call if you want to know about parking.
Oh, I didn't read that.
Oh, I always look for parking information.
So they said their second annual training, but that's, it's interesting. I'm looking, if I can go myself, I will, but I'm looking forward to seeing how you feel about it, Nancy, because I know you've been to Saratoga and
Yes.
the Hudson Valley one. So, it's always good to have another in-person one. I know you guys can do the webinars at the end of the year, but they get repetitive.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
And the ones they really want aren't
Yeah.
available, like the legal updates.
Yeah, which they do at Hudson Valley really well.
They do good at
I just have,
Saratoga, too.
I have a report for Andrew to give us a really quick report on wetland buffers changes.
Well, I guess the change is that the court struck down the wetland regulations that came into effect January 1st, 2025. The underlying act is still in effect, so all the base legislation for the new wetland regulations are there, but now there's not governing regulations that DEC has to implement the act. And it's a little bit ironic when you go and read the decision for how DEC puts applicants through the ringer on process and seeker and everything. They got slapped pretty good for pretty much skirting all the seeker regulations and issuing a negative declaration and just issuing the regulations. So it's an interesting read. I think the takeaway is nothing in the time being is really going to change. If anything, it might make applicants the process for applicants a little more confusing, but the overall act is still there. So I haven't heard if DC is going to appeal it, which I assume they probably would. But I'd say for most people in the short term, nothing's really changed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Anything else for reports? All right. Open up to commission business. All right. All right. If there's no commission business, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Strang and second by Ms. Gold. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 9:06 PM. Thank you, everyone.